McLaren has rebranded in golf's honor for Monaco, while Romain Grosjean is on hot form in IndyCar. You can now watch full 24-minute episodes of The Inside Line at our new home on unbeaten.com. Monaco marks 55 years since the debut of McLaren, and the celebrations have kicked off already, with the team unveiling a stunning one-off Golf livery that will run this weekend in the Principality. Golf first raced with McLaren from 1968, when founder Bruce was behind the wheel, to 1973. The partnership netting more than 40 wins across F1 and now defunct sports car series Can-Am. With more success at Le Mans in the 1990s with the McLaren F1 GTR, making its return to Grand Prix racing all the more special.
I think the car looks unbelievable. I've grown up around motorsports, and there's nothing more iconic than a Golf livery. So to bring it to life on today's McLaren and about ready to watch this thing race around Monaco is super exciting.
And while the drivers think that the new look is amazing, Daniel Ricciardo, who won Monaco in 2018 with Red Bull, says McLaren fans will lose their minds, with lots of emotion expected.
The fans want the team to do well, you know, like they want to see them win again. And it's like people, I think, have been with McLaren from probably day one, a lot of them. And so now to, especially I'd say like the older generation fans, to see this livery on track, they might even tear up, who knows.
Ex-F1 driver Romain Grosjean has scored his first podium for almost 6 years, with the Swiss Frenchman second in just his third IndyCar race on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's road course. Grosjean, who started from pole, his first since 2011 in the now defunct GP2 Asia Series, led 44 of the 80 laps, but had to settle for second after he was passed by Rinus VeeKay at turn 12. The 20-year-old topped an all-European podium, with Dutchman VeeKay taking his maiden win ahead of Grosjean and Spain's Alex Palau.
Starting 7th wasn't amazing, but I knew we had the car, and we were so fast. I'm so happy for the team, so thankful.
Pressure is mounting on Sergio Pérez at Red Bull Racing, with team boss Christian Horner stating that the squad needs him as a strategic option to protect against Mercedes attacks. Pérez started 8th in Spain, but was stuck in 6th place behind McLaren's Daniel Ricciardo until lap 45, meaning he was no help to teammate Max Verstappen when Sir Lewis Hamilton made a surprise second stop and then closed down a 23-second gap to pass and win. But Horner says that Pérez needs to up his game in qualifying soon, so the squad is not as vulnerable. We desperately need him to be in that gap so that Mercedes don't have the strategic options that they had, he said. Meanwhile, motorsport's governing body, the FIA, is set to crack down on rear wing flexibility from next month's French Grand Prix, after Red Bull's rear wing was described by Hamilton as bendy. A new test is set to be created for rear wings, following suspicions some teams' designs can pass the static test but flex at speed. A new test is allowed under Article 3.9.9 of the regulations, which states, the FIA reserves the right to introduce further load and/or deflection tests on any part of the bodywork which appears to be or is suspected of moving whilst the car is in motion. Austria's Red Bull Ring will again host an F1 doubleheader starting next month, with the iconic track drafted in to replace the Turkish Grand Prix. Turkey was a replacement for Canada, but also had to be dropped, with the nation joining the UK's red travel list from May 12, meaning that F1 personnel returning from the event would have to serve 10 days in hotel quarantine upon arrival. As a result, the calendar has been shuffled, with Austria hosting back-to-back races on June 27 and July 4, and France held 1 week earlier on June 20 for the season's first triple header. Turkey, though, remains confident that it can find a slot later in the year, along with China, which was also postponed. Iconic track Silverstone will host F1's first ever sprint qualifying, with the British Grand Prix confirmed as the first of 3 events to trial the format. The qualifying experiment, controversial for its shift away from the sport's DNA, has been created for more action at race weekends and will see a 100-kilometer race determine the Grand Prix grid. Necessarily, at each of the 3 sprint qualifying weekends, the format will change, with qualifying as it is now pushed back to Friday to set the grid for the 100-kilometer dash. Sprint qualifying is expected to also feature at the Italian Grand Prix and in Brazil, should the race go ahead in November. I am delighted that all the teams supported this plan, and it is a testament to our united efforts to continue to engage our fans in new ways, said F1 President and CEO Stefano Domenicali. Romain Grosjean says that he understands the trouble Haas's drivers have been having with the team's 2021 car, which must be driven at 110% to catch the pack with inevitable mistakes. The veteran racer previously said the car that he handed over at the end of 2020 was easy to drive, but has since admitted to F1's official podcast Beyond the Grid that things change once you're over the limit.
You may do a good lap, but when you see that the car in front of you is a second faster because it's a faster car, you're going to try to get that second, and therefore that's where you start driving at 110% instead of 100, and things can get a little bit sketchy.
Grosjean, though, has ruled out a return to Formula One, with the Swiss-French racer harboring greater ambitions, including his current IndyCar drive with COYNE Racing.
Formula One, my chapter is closed, and I've had a wonderful time and did things that I didn't even dream of doing when I was a child. I've gone to the end of the story, but I say, motorsports, I'm not done.
Williams driver George Russell says his race with Mercedes and Sakhir last season was not only a huge confidence boost, but a lesson in dealing with higher expectations at the front of the grid. Russell, who replaced a COVID-affected 7-time F1 world champion Sir Lewis Hamilton, would have won the race if not for a botched pit stop and puncture, but said to Australian Grand Prix podcast In the Fast Lane that the pain he endured from it was beneficial.
You know what, you got to put that behind you now, because if you want to win a championship, you're going to have disappointments. You're going to have victories taken away from you. You're going to have weekends where you're off the pace, and you've got to be strong enough to say, right, that's behind me now. Move on to the next one, because if you dwell on the disappointments, you're not going to go anywhere.
Former F1 driver Carlos Reutemann continues to recover in hospital, with the 79-year-old in a stable condition after suffering internal bleeding due to a digestive hemorrhage. Reutemann, who competed in 146 Grands Prix from 1972 to 1982, was sent to Rosario's Sanatorio Parque clinic with internal bleeding earlier this month. But after a few days, he was moved from the intensive care unit to a general ward following a procedure. Reutemann, a politician and former governor of Argentina, is reported to be lucid with no more internal bleeding. Mercedes has revealed Sir Lewis Hamilton could have passed rival Max Verstappen on a one-stop strategy in Spain, but that it would have opened him up to Red Bull's own surprise second-stop attack. Hamilton went 4 laps longer than Verstappen on the opening stint to create a tyre delta for a chance to overtake, but once passed, staying on a one-stop would have made him vulnerable.
If we had done that, you then have the disadvantage almost of being the race leader, and Max could have done to Lewis what we did to him, so he could have converted to a 2-stop as soon as Lewis had overtaken him.
Prior to the second stop, Hamilton was yo-yoing in and out of DRS range, making him think a pass on a one-stop was possible.
He actually said to us after the race, I was almost about to do it, and perhaps you should have left me out, I'd have done it on track. And that looked like it was quite possible. I think with the fresher tyres that were on Lewis's car, it would have probably happened at some point because Max would have started to get pretty significant degradation towards the end of the race.
Thanks for watching. To stay up to speed on all things Formula One, make sure you hit the subscribe button.